And away we go, Orchid. Are you excited? Here we are, another week of the Orchid and Kato show. Big week in wrestling this week, but let's start off right away. The big story of today's day. WWE legend, the Dynamite Kid, passed away. Now, I know you're not super familiar with him. We talked a little bit about him this morning. He was really an innovator in what we would call sort of a high-flying style. He came from England to begin with and then moved to Canada and became synonymous with Stu Hart's wrestling up there, and then moved on to the WWE and made an even bigger name in Japan. He was a pretty special performer in his athleticism, but he also was a guy who took a lot of huge risks, took a lot of huge bumps from the ropes clear to the floor, and he was humongous because he was took a lot of steroids to get to where he was. And so while in the short term things sort of paid off for him because it got him to the WWE and he ended up making good money there, and in Japan making good money there, but in the end he spent last 25 years of his life in debilitating pain. And at a certain point in the early 2000s, he ended up in a wheelchair. And I think it's a cautionary tale for a lot of guys and girls that want to take these outrageous bumps and do whatever it takes to get to the top. Or, the old saying is live like there's no tomorrow, but more often than not, there is a tomorrow. So it's important that, you push hard for your goals, but you also measure the long term. And I think for him, he maybe didn't measure the long terms. And for everybody, not just in wrestling, but in life, measure the long term. The short term is important, but not in the face of the long term.
I don't think the research was there, though, then. And, fans nowadays, they complain about the wrestlers right now not doing these amazing leaps. I mean, we still have Jeff Hardy who's doing those crazy stunts, and sometimes McMahon does those crazy jumps. But, if you do those crazy jumps, you're going to end up like this guy did.
Sure. So it's, we think about Mick Foley, and, you see him walking down the ramp now, and he walks like a crab because of all, and, as a fan, I love these guys. I love the sacrifice that they put in for a business that I love.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't help but to worry about their long term. We want to be able to see these guys and girls perform for a very long time. So it's a tough decision, For some guys, like maybe a Mick Foley, if he hadn't taken these outrageous bumps, he may never become the big star that he is. So I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I think at the end of the day, sometimes your health is more important long term than what any amount of fame or fortune really brings. So, I hope he rests in peace. I hope he finds, the peace in the afterlife that maybe he didn't find here on Earth. So, moving away from a down note, maybe it's still a down note, but maybe not the same type of down note. Tell me what you heard about Monday Night Raw this week.
I heard that it's record-breaking low ratings for Raw, and I know that right now is NFL, so everybody's watching their Monday Night Football instead of Monday Night Wrestling, but it's really surprising.
Why is it surprising for you?
I don't know, because when I think of the WWE, I think of I just think of a giant audience. I just think of they're on the same level as the NFL with viewership. I don't know. It's just.
I think that it's important to, and I think I've mentioned this to you, maybe even here on this platform before, that it's important now in today's age that we get away from that television rating number. I don't think it holds the same weight that it did 15 years ago, because wrestling fans are consuming wrestling in a different way than what they used to. The NFL is so huge that if you don't watch it live, it's going to get spoiled for you. If you're smart, you can not watch wrestling, just stay off of social media and watch it later and get the same feelings. Maybe not the exact same feeling, but as long as things are getting spoiled for you, it's still a fun product to watch. So I don't know how much of that live rating accounts into people that watch it on DVR. I don't know how much of that live rating accounts into people just who will wait and see. I just want to see the highlight package on YouTube.
Yeah.
What's the big moment? What's the big stories?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's just wrestling. I think a lot of sports are going to feel that crunch over the course of time because people attention spans are getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So to have somebody sit down and watch anything for 3 or 4 hours is a job. I mean, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I've loved wrestling my whole life. And I complain relentlessly about these pay-per-views going for
like 7 hours.
6, 7 hours. I mean, I complain about it. I mean, Raw feels the same way. It's just too long. SmackDown feels right as far as 2 hours. But at that point, you've maybe watched 4 or 5 hours on Sunday, 3 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Tuesday. I mean, it really feels like by Tuesday, I don't even know if you can make it through 2 more hours. So, when I was young, if we got 3 hours of wrestling a week, an entire week, that was fun. Mm-hmm. And they weren't all like great matches. A lot of job matches in that. So, I don't know. I think that you have to look at things a little differently. I think the consumption is a little different.
I understand that, yeah.
Okay. So, I don't know. It still at the same time, the consumption is the same today as it was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think things have changed dramatically in the past year, and yet we're still lower than we were a year ago. So that's maybe a little more concerning than lowest of all time. Lower than a year ago is concerning, but regardless of what you think of Roman Reigns, losing him hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't have your top guy, regardless if people love him or hate him, they're tuning in to see him.
Mm-hmm.
And now you don't have that guy. And you don't have John Cena. And you don't have anybody else. Braun Strowman. And I like Braun Strowman, but he's not on the same level as Roman or John Cena.
Right.
So everybody that's sort of been the guy on television for the last 5 years is off television, those two guys. And because they've not tried hard enough to fill those voids, this is what we're going to have for a little bit. Mm-hmm. If Roman's out for a while, it's going to be a while till they can build another person up to that same level as Roman Reigns or as John Cena, because they're just everybody else has been treated as a second-class citizen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe Ronda Rousey's as big a star as those guys, but they haven't really used her in a way that makes you feel like she's Roman Reigns or John Cena. Not yet, anyway. Mm-hmm. Not consistently. So I don't know. I think you're going to have a little bit of a downtime, but I don't think it's panic time. I think that they've had, anybody want to say this is the worst time in the history of wrestling, did not live through what I lived through in the early to mid 90s, where we were dealing with T.L. Hopper, who was a wrestling plumber. We had a wrestler named Sal Sincere, who was in real life a great guy, who I've met several times, but he was wrestling basically as a complete Italian stereotype. We had a guy who had a big bull head on his head and was called Mantar. He was just a wrestling bull man. That's what in my late teenage years, that's what we had to deal with. So you can't compare how terrible it was then to what it is now. You just can't. So it's fine. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. At least we have interesting characters now and great wrestlers. Never has there been a time in wrestling where there's been more great athletes in the business. So I think it's fine. It's not panic time. Moving on to our next subject, let's just take a quick overview of how you felt about Monday Night Raw and SmackDown this week as compared to last week.
Better than last week. SmackDown is still the better show.
I agree.
I don't know, the 2 hours seem to fly by when we're watching SmackDown. Maybe it's because of that 7-3-2. Maybe it's like a mental thing, but I don't know. The SmackDown flies by and then Raw just kind of drags on for me.
Yeah. I thought Raw was significantly better because they started out, it wasn't wrestling, but they started out with action right off the bat.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple formula. It works so well for so long, but in the Attitude Era where you get out there and you fight right out the gate. But for the last 10 years or so, maybe even 15 now, they want to start every show out with a promo, and sometimes those promos are long. I mean, so long, where you're just like, come on, I mean, how many times can so-and-so say how terrible the fans are and, you know, badmouth the babyface, you know? Once in a while would be fine, but long promos to start a show are show killers to me. Like, I lose interest right away. And if you lose interest in something, whether it's a wrestling show or anything right off the bat, it's hard to get someone's attention back. So let's get to some wrestling. I wouldn't even mind if, like, we're coming in and we're not even getting the entrances. Like, you know, Michael Cole comes on and says, we got to get right to it. The two guys are already in the ring, or the two women, they're already in the ring, and they've started to fight. Like, they started the show, like, before the show came on. You're like, what? What happened? What did I miss? Like, you're excited to see what happened. We never see that. Like, bring on Monday Night Raw as a start between, I don't know, there's a fight already in the entryway between Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax. Like, right off the bat, you're like, what happened? How did we get to here? And then they can let the whole fight play out and then review in the next segment. Like, this is how it started. Look at these two. This is a war, you know?
Yeah.
None of that.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why we can't get to some action and then do some backstory afterwards. It can't do it every week, but you could have two people in the ring when the fireworks is going off and there's a match right now starting, and you're like, what? Wow, we don't have to sit through all this crap. Like, I think they just need to grab it and shake it. You know, you can still bring the old formula back once a month where you start it with a promo, but like, the urgency to watch Raw at the beginning is not there.
Right.
Because whatever you missed in the beginning, if you tune into hour 3, they're going to recap it, and you're going to see it.
Yeah.
And it's going to play out at the very end. So really, SmackDown's a little different. They sort of pace things a little differently there. Yeah. But Raw is the same formula. Talk. Match, it means nothing at about the 8:30 mark. And then review, main event. I mean, it's the same sort of formula. We'll throw in a few matches that don't mean much, and then that's it.
Right.
And it's just not a good formula right now. Shake things up. That's my suggestion. No one from there is ever going to hear me on this little thing, but, I mean, it just seems like such common sense. As far as SmackDown, what did you think of the Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Flair promo segment at the beginning of SmackDown?
I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting. I'm happy they gave Asuka a little bit of talking. I mean, I know that she's a little slower in the way that she talks, but she did fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the promo was good. Like,
I think her and Nakamura are in the same boat. They can talk, just don't let them talk for very long. Make them make strong points and then get to the fighting.
Yeah.
I didn't love it, and here's my reason why. Like, I see, and you're the first one who suggested it to me that Becky Lynch is like the Stone Cold of today. But Flair was interrupting Becky Lynch and cutting her off, and Becky was clamming up. That would have never happened to Stone Cold. He would have never let someone cut them off and then him just clam up. Like, he'd have just run his mouth right over the top of her. I don't care if it's Flair or who it is.
Yeah.
Like, he would have not, like, if you're going to be that number one that I think she wants to be, she can't allow that to happen. And she can make people mad in the back. She can make Flair mad in the moment, in real life. But it doesn't matter. It's about selling tickets. It's about selling merchandise. And if she elevates to number one, it's going to help everybody in that division make more money. So people will get mad, but they've got to get over it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, she...
Yeah, but, like, I think that she's not going to do that just because of what you said. You can't make people in the back mad, and you got to watch out, because if you make sure that Flair mad, you're going to have issues.
What kind of issues?
I mean...
I think Becky Lynch's spot is pretty safe right now. I do. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do with her at this point anyway, but she might as well do whatever it takes to get herself over. I think if it was written for her to leave in that moment at the end of that and just walk away, then that was a mistake, and she should have stood up and said, can we do something different here, because I'm trying to do this with my character. And maybe you have a sit down with Flair and say, listen, this is my character. I can't let you talk over me like this. You have open communication with the people you're working with. And if they can't get with that, then that's too bad. But if you're being upfront and honest with them to begin with, that promo was a bad promo for Becky Lynch. Because it just didn't show her as being as assertive and as strong of a character as what she wants to portray, maybe on Twitter or other places. It's not. At the end of the day, the most eyes are on the television. It's not on Twitter. It's not on social media. It's on television, and you have to be that character that you want to be when you're on television, when you have a microphone in your hand, when you have the most amount of eyes on you. And to me, that segment was a huge loss for her. And if she doesn't get the main event of WrestleMania, I think we could look back on that particular Tuesday as maybe McMahon losing a little bit of faith in what she's capable of.
But I don't think it's her fault. I mean, we saw it with the Dean Ambrose thingy that we watched on the network. How scripted it is. I knew it was scripted, but I didn't realize it was that, like, read from a prompter.
Teleprompter, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that was what they gave her. Like, they handed her a script and said, this is what you are doing tonight.
Everything you hear from McMahon, though, is we want you to grab the brass ring. Take a chance. Take a chance. She has got to take a chance. And if it falls flat on her face, then it falls flat on her face. But at least she didn't have anybody to blame but herself. And right now, she has no one to blame but herself for not taking a hold of that brass ring. I don't know. I just don't think that was a good promo for her. And if it wasn't right for her, guys are forever in the back telling them, no, I don't like this. I wouldn't say this. I mean, that is a fact. Like, that is a stone cold fact. That guys say, no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't. My character wouldn't do this. Speak up. And she's getting to a point where she probably has enough pull to say, my character wouldn't say this. I wouldn't do that. And she didn't. She either didn't have the faith in herself to do it, or I don't know what. But it was a bad look for her Tuesday night. I really think it was a bad look for her. And long term, I think Tuesday night's going to hurt her. We'll find out. We'll find out long term. I really still hope she gets the main event. But, yeah. Okay, last thing I want to touch on real quick. We touched on a little bit of Raw, a little bit of SmackDown. I agree. Both shows were better than last week. The women were given a brighter chance to shine. And for the most part, outside of maybe Becky, I think they all really sort of picked up the ball that the men fumbled last week. And
what about the Bayley, Sasha, and Alexa?
Yeah, it was a little suspect, but they gave us a really good match afterward. The match that followed was fantastic. I mean, as good as any tag match you'll see, that's only given 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was really good. I thought the women did a good job. The only other thing I want to touch on is the Daniel Bryan and the heel turn. You and I are both huge Daniel Bryan fans. You still feel the same way about Daniel Bryan in light of his heel turn? How do you feel about the direction of his character as a heel?
I like the direction. I know you laughed last night because of the way he was acting, but I mean, it's him. It's not like it's not like that's something he's passionate about, and you can definitely make a connection to his real life through that. Yeah,
I think it's fun. Fickle. He kept yelling fickle, which is also very true. The fans are very fickle. I think you probably have got tired of hearing me yell at the television at the fans for the last 5 years because they are very fickle. I still think, though, at the end of the day, like, I know people were booing him, but I just can't see long term. Whenever you start getting to the Rumble, you start leading up to WrestleMania, the group that really goes to these events, WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble, like that group of smart marks are not going to boo Daniel Bryan. They're just not. They're not. I think my dreams of a babyface Daniel Bryan versus a heel Miz main event at WrestleMania is not going to happen.
I mean, maybe we'll get it next year.
Yeah. No, we don't get it this year. We're never going to get it. It's just never going to happen. I can wipe that away from my dreams. But, yeah, I thought this week wrestling was really good. I thought it was some of the best we've had in maybe 2 or 3 months. I thought it was better. I think maybe they realized at the end of last week how bad it was, and somebody some 70-year-old man was probably stomping his feet and screaming and cursing and saying, we got to do better than this. And they did. They did. It wasn't perfect, but it was better.
Yeah.
So, good. So I think it's finally time. We had a good week of wrestling. We've been talking about it for a while. This is finally the moment. We get a little too sweet. We've been watching a lot of Ring of Honor today. We've been caught up on our Ring of Honor. So, it's time. A little bit of Bullet Club too sweet?
No.
Maybe just one for the Young Bucks?
No.
Maybe next week. Tune in next time. Thank you.